For millennia, human reproduction was a biological mystery, a sacred chance. But that era is ending. We are moving beyond editing genes to scoring souls. Tech giants and biotech firms, armed with AI, are no longer content to observe nature. They are actively preparing to become the ultimate architects of human life, designing the next generation based on data, probabilities, and economic optimization. The promise is noble: eradicating disease, eliminating suffering, and ensuring the perfect child. But the reality is the creation of the DNA score, a single number assigned at conception that predicts future worth, risk, and compliance. What happens when the most intimate decision of your life, having a child, is subject to an algorithmic verdict? When your child's opportunities are predetermined not by effort, but by the genetic metadata analyzed by an infallible machine. This is the dawn of the genetic gulag, where freedom begins not with birth, but with a satisfactory score. The concept of the designer baby is quickly shifting from a moral debate to a societal mandate. AI can now analyze thousands of genetic markers to predict probabilities of everything: intelligence, athleticism, disease risk, and even predicted compliance with future social norms. As these technologies become widely available, not choosing genetic optimization will be framed as irresponsible or even negligent. This pressure creates a designer baby trap. The technology promises to raise the minimum standard of human potential, but it ultimately eliminates diversity and enforces a corporate standard of perfection. Parents will face immense pressure to optimize their children, simply to ensure they can compete for jobs and resources in the labor matrix. Previous topic. The result is not evolution, but manufactured conformity, where children are viewed less as individuals and more as optimized, high-performance biological assets. The DNA score is the ultimate form of predictive injustice. Previous topic. It aggregates a vast amount of genetic data and probabilistic outcomes into a single, comprehensive score that defines a child's path before they take their first breath. This score will be used by institutions to manage risk and allocate resources. Imagine insurance companies setting premiums based on your child's predicted longevity, universities denying applications based on low inherited cognitive scores, or governments limiting access to specialized resources based on predicted social deviance risks. The score becomes the final word on equal opportunity. Poverty and inequality will no longer be seen as systemic failures, but as biological inevitabilities encoded in the child's DNA score. The appeal process for bad genes? Non-existent. The development of ectogenesis, artificial wombs, is framed as a solution to maternal health risks and a path to reproductive equality. However, it represents the final step in removing the biological process of reproduction from the individual and placing it entirely within the corporate state apparatus. When gestation moves from the private, personal realm to the public, monitored, and automated lab setting, the child's development is perpetually under algorithmic surveillance. The state, or the controlling corporation, becomes the final authority on the entire process. Furthermore, it creates a powerful leverage point: the ability to deny access to the artificial gestation process to individuals deemed genetically or socially unworthy. The individual biological link is severed, and the continuation of the species becomes a managed, patented, and controlled production line. The economic implications of the genetic gulag are staggering. Biotech firms are aggressively patenting not just the genetic editing tools, like CRISPR, but the resulting optimized genetic sequences themselves. If a specific genetic sequence that guarantees high cognitive ability is patented by a corporation, that child and their descendants could be considered legally bound to the patent holder. This makes humanity the ultimate commodity. When your most valuable asset, your unique biological code, is owned and managed by a corporation, your autonomy is severely compromised. The entire human population risks becoming a collection of licensed, optimized, and controlled biological systems, perpetually indebted to the patent holders. The fight for human freedom must now include the fight for ownership over our own unpatented, unedited DNA. We are at the ethical crossroads of human existence. The promise of genetically optimized perfection is seductive, but the cost is the loss of our chaotic, diverse, and ultimately free natural humanity. If we surrender the right to reproduce naturally, unmonitored, and unscored, we surrender the final bastion of individual sovereignty. The fight is not against science, but against the centralization of power over the code of life itself. We must question the architects of the DNA score and demand that human worth remains unquantifiable by any algorithm. The time to decide the future of natural humanity is now, before the genetic gulag closes its gates, and the next generation is born into a predetermined, patented existence.